They said, "We believe your son has been a victim of a crime." And I said, "Impossible, my son is at home."
She is like thousands of parents nationwide who had no idea until the FBI contacted her.
He showed me the photos and immediately I just broke down.
Children sexually abused and photographed, their pictures produced in series, uploaded to the internet, and traded like baseball cards.
He had hundreds of thousands of images and videos of child pornography.
Hundreds of thousands?
Yes, hundreds of thousands.
And the producers, using their cell phone cameras, are becoming even more depraved.
Pictures of infants used to be very rare. We're seeing them in almost every case now.
Those caught producing the photos and those caught viewing them are right in your neighborhood.
Professionals, doctors, attorneys, law enforcement, judges, stay-at-home parents. I mean, it cuts across an entire spectrum.
He should know he headed the FBI's National Violent Crimes Against Children section.
It happens in every community. That's why it's important to kind of discuss this issue, to make the public aware of it.
Prior to this, I had no idea that this world existed where adults are taking pictures and making videos of children and sharing them like they're greeting cards all over the world.
Good evening, I'm John Ferrugia. Welcome to Insight. It is a subject no one wants to talk about, no one wants to hear about, and no one wants to even think about. But it is something that every parent and grandparent needs to know about to protect their children. It is the production of millions of pornographic images of children being sexually abused, uploaded from cell phones, webcams, and computers. Now, those who fight this cybercrime and rescue the children, they rarely talk about what they do and never talk about the emotional toll it takes on them. It is a problem of enormous scope that is wrecking the lives of children and families, and a problem that can only be addressed if we are aware of how it's happening and what we can do to protect our kids. This is a look inside a world few can even imagine. Beth knows that her son is a victim with nothing to be ashamed of, and she knows there are thousands more like him. Few families ever talk publicly about this crime or their trauma, and we agreed to protect their identities.
There was a card on our front door from the FBI, and immediately our hearts sank. We thought, why is the FBI contacting us?
Beth and her husband owned their own business and were concerned they'd unknowingly done something wrong.
We're just normal people and work hard and take care of our children and do all the things that you're supposed to do and follow the rules.
So a meeting was set up with the FBI, and their puzzlement gave way to horror as the agents broke the news.
They said, "We believe your son has been a victim of a crime." And I said, "Impossible, my son is at home." And he said, "I'm going to show you some photographs, and I need you to tell me if you recognize the child in the photo." And he showed me the photos, and immediately I just broke down. My husband broke down crying.
Not only did they see their son being sexually abused, but
we recognized the location of the photos, everything about the photo we recognized. And they asked us if we knew who the person was and where he could be located. And
did you?
I did. He actually was a family friend that we had known for a long time, almost my whole life.
It's your neighbor, it's your pastor, it's your teacher, it's your soccer coach. We've had all of those types of people. People with kids, people without kids.
FBI Special Agent Tina Forkas has been investigating internet child pornography in the Denver field office for more than 7 years.
I wish there was some magic profile where we could identify these people, but there's not.
It was Forkas and her fellow agents in Illinois, Missouri, Arizona, and Colorado who were able to identify Beth's son and track down those who had sexually abused him for years. At the center of the case was this man, Richard Franklin. He lived in this quiet Denver neighborhood. He's a 50-year-old veteran. He works seasonally, stocking and restocking greeting cards in various stores in the Denver area. And at the time of his arrest, he was living with his parents, who knew nothing about his obsession.
You take a quick walk around the house and you immediately know usually who your subject is, because it's the bedroom with all the computers and all the keyboards.
FBI photos from the house show how Franklin closeted himself for hours with his computers near his bed, with pillows and blankets on the floor, in front of a TV screen where he could view in comfort.
He had one of the largest collections that I've dealt with over the years. He had hundreds of thousands of images and videos of child pornography.
Hundreds of thousands?
Yes, hundreds of thousands.
Franklin's images, stored on these hard drives, were being traded with like-minded predators all over the U.S. and beyond.
I think just on one computer he had about 150,000, and then we had found another 200,000+ on the old computer.
These are actual screenshots of Franklin's computer files showing how he organized his collection of images for his pleasure. There were vast series of individual children being abused. Even for a veteran agent like Tina Forkas, it was disturbing and stunning.
He had it just like his baseball cards, A's, B's, C's, categorized, alphabetized, subfolders for each series.
While Franklin was not producing photos, he was convicted and sentenced to 100 years in federal prison, in part because he was advertising for illegal content so he could trade individual photos or series to others, enticing them to produce new images for him.
And he actually became friends with someone who was a father of a young boy who was producing. And Mr. Franklin would actually ask for this individual to make videos and send to Mr. Franklin.
By tracking down all the cyber connections to and from Richard Franklin, the FBI was able to identify that boy and rescue him. And he was just one of the children in this web of suffering. Another was Beth's son.
My son was going to my dad's house. My dad, thinks the world of my son and loves and cares for him deeply. But my dad also had some people that were helping him out and providing care and resources at his house.
So he had no idea?
He had absolutely no idea.
The men, one married with 2 children and the other single, were arrested and convicted. They had access to the child in the house.
These would be the last people that you would suspect of doing anything hurtful to our family, because we consider them to be part of our family.
Nobody wants to know that this dark side of humanity exists, and not just exists, but the scope of it. The volume of it is exploding.
Judy Smith is chief of the Cybercrime and National Security section of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Denver.
The number of cases that are happening, it's an avalanche. I mean, we just feel like we're dishing the ocean out with a spoon.
She has been prosecuting cases like Richard Franklin's for 7 years.
Now a big case is millions.
Millions of images.
Millions.
From a technology standpoint, if you think now, we have many devices that we can take photographs, we can video, we can live stream.
Calvin Shivers is the special agent in charge of the Denver FBI. He came to Colorado after being chief of the Violent Crimes Against Children section at FBI headquarters in Washington.
There's that ability now to connect to the internet from almost anywhere. We also look at the storage capacity, where years ago it was megabytes to gigabytes to terabytes to petabytes. These perpetrators are emboldened because they feel there's a sense of security through the dark web or through encryption that they can maintain a large inventory of child pornography.
A key ally for the FBI and state and local law enforcement agencies in identifying child victims is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Federal authorities work daily with what they call NCMEC to identify children in the photos who are being sexually abused.
For us, NCMEC is a significant partner.
Shivers says the center's registry of thousands of victims, both known and unknown, is crucial.
Images that we seize during an investigation, we're able to run those images against known images that NCMEC has, and that may play a part in victim identification. NCMEC is also a great partner in providing tips to various FBI offices around the country.
Here's how it works. Internet service providers like Google, Yahoo, and others are constantly monitoring the billions of uploads and downloads of material with algorithms that search for possible child pornography. When it is detected, the providers review them and contact NCMEC, sending a sample image as well as information about the web server and the address they have. The professionals at the nonprofit are trained to recognize legally defined child pornography. They then pass along the image to the FBI for possible investigation.
A lot of times when you just get a general tip, there may not be enough information, but NCMEC, because of the experienced staff, they're able to, in some instances, cull additional information that may help the investigation.
To get an idea of just how this crime against children is increasing, you only have to look at how the number of tips compiled by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has exploded. In 2010, there were more than 213,000 tips involving child pornography. In 2017, the number of tips had exploded to more than 10 million. For investigators and prosecutors, that means an impossible amount of work has to be prioritized.
We focus on travelers, in other words, people that are coming into the district or leaving the district to engage in sex tourism with little kids. There's quite a bit of that. Next in line would be the production cases. So the guys that are actually taking the pictures, uploading them to the internet and sharing them. Then we move on to the distributors. Those are the cases that are distributing images to other child pornographers.
And in so many cases, like the Franklin case, the concern for the U.S. Attorney and investigators is that consumers evolve from collectors to hands-on abusers of children.
Almost every subject of mine in these last 7 years have either been prior hands-on offenders, or certainly they have some interest in child pornography, but we just can't prove that hands-on offense. They position themselves around children so they can get that sexual gratification.
You know, being a parent, seeing that picture, it's forever burned into my memory.
Beth is in a category of parents whose small children have been victimized without their knowledge.
And there was a video. It's forever ingrained in my memory. That's not some way that you ever want to see your defenseless child. You know, you want to jump through that screen and rescue the child.
These are parents unaware either that the sexual abuser had access to the child or that a person close to them or their families was capable of such a crime.
You know someone for so long and you think that you know everything about them.
But investigators are also seeing more cases, like in the Franklin case, where parents are sexually abusing their own children, producing the photographs, and then sharing them. Assistant U.S. Attorney Judy Smith says that is often how the most defenseless are now showing up.
We're seeing where pictures of infants used to be very rare. We're seeing them in almost every case now.
Infants?
Infants.
Do you think people at home have any sense that this is, you're saying it's common?
Very common.
And says Smith, she's seeing more women involved.
We have had one or two who seem as though they're straight up pedophiles and are doing it because they're interested in the subject matter. For the most part, though, that has not been the case, and they're instead trying to keep a male partner happy.
What makes this horrific crime possible and photos so accessible? It is that high-definition camera and mini computer we all carry around in our pocket. And with some children in elementary school now carrying smartphones, Judy Smith says there is a whole new class of children vulnerable to sexual predators who are up to date on every possible smartphone application that kids are using.
They can take pictures of themselves, and they can send those to their friends or somebody who they think are friends. There's online predators out there who pose as young boys or girls who then entice or ask kids to self-produce child pornography.
I know you've been waiting for this for a while, so I wanted to give you something special.
This video, produced by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, is a warning for teens and parents about sending pictures online. And FBI Special Agent Tina Forkas says, once just one photo is sent by an unsuspecting child or teen to a predator posing online as another kid,
They can be blackmailed, or they're too embarrassed to say anything, so they continue to send pictures.
that is how predators trap kids into self-producing. Our interview with Special Agent Forkas was at the FBI field office building in Denver. And to illustrate her point,
We took over a subject's account, and downstairs on a computer, people are actively posting child pornography on one of my undercover computers downstairs right now. There's a little girl on that site. You can tell she's self-producing. I mean, she's holding the cell phone out. She's nude. She's maybe 10, 11 years old.
You're seeing this.
And we're seeing this live on this site. Why is she taking pictures of herself? Where are her parents? These kids aren't chatting with other kids. They're chatting with men online looking to exploit children.
You know, parents should be cognizant of what their children are doing on the internet and on their smartphones just across the board.
But FBI Special Agent in Charge Calvin Shiver says it goes far beyond monitoring.
Parents should also make sure that there's a good avenue for their children to communicate. And if they had that conversation, that the children know that they can come to them. To your point, a lot of the victims don't feel that they can talk to their parents, and that causes them to be re-victimized over and over again.
And parents need to know they have to be the first line of defense because law enforcement simply does not have the resources to investigate this ballooning problem.
We have to kind of cut off that age limit. If they're 15 years old and taking pictures of themselves, maybe that's something a local jurisdiction can handle. But for us, we've got to focus on the kids, the 6-year-olds, the 8-year-olds, the hands-on abuse that's going on.
And there's just so much.
There's too much.
We insert our hands in here.
Mike Schneider works in a room packed with digital and forensic tools that allow investigators to access cell phones and other mobile devices seized at crime scenes. These tools can be as simple as a box that keeps the phone isolated from the reach of its owner. Otherwise,
The person who owns the phone can easily access it and wipe it. And so any
Remotely.
data, right, correct, and any data or evidence that could be potentially on it would be gone.
Schneider is one of several forensic examiners, information tech specialists, who work at the Rocky Mountain Regional Computer Forensic Laboratory in Centennial. It is in this lab, funded and overseen by the FBI, where local law enforcement and the FBI bring digital devices, like cell phones, to examine operating systems, applications, and hard drives.
Generally speaking, we can get the data. If it's a locked device,
Local and state enforcement agencies provide the techs who work here.
sometimes it'll allow us to find what the lock code is or the PIN number, and we can get that PIN code, then gain access to more of the phones.
It is this expertise that helps drive investigations.
Over 60% of our cases are involving child pornography.
Glenn Pietzmeyer is deputy director of the lab. He has never before allowed cameras into the working areas, and he is careful not to reveal too many digital details of the work.
A lot of agencies that we receive evidence from don't have the level of expertise or the equipment to be able to do a cell phone extraction.
The Rocky Mountain RCFL serves agencies across Colorado and Wyoming, and there are 15 RCFL labs nationwide involved in daily digital investigation, evaluation, and training. That means a live stream of knowledge.
Each of those labs have their own experts.
So you're learning as you go along.
Right.
sometimes.
And we're sharing that information.
The work can be tedious.
You're bypassing everything that's on the board. So there's security on the board. You're just bypassing that, and you're going right to the chip.
But sometimes the chips are encrypted. That is, they have an unrecognizable or unbreakable code. So if other RCFLs can't crack it, the phone can be sent to the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia.
It's a higher process that I don't have the ability to do. They will grab that data, the bundle of data, and then send that back to us, and then we will examine that data.
It is all part of the minute-to-minute cyber battle pitting users and producers of child pornography against those who are trying to stop them. At stake, the lives of thousands of children.
They're finding new ways to hide their evidence. We're trying to find new ways to be able to retrieve it.
This is a surface mount component. We have the wire that runs this direction here and then connects to the left side of this component.
The RCFL lab is not the only digital forensic operation in Colorado. Colorado's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, or ICAC, is based in the Colorado Springs Police Department, where its team coordinates with local agencies statewide to investigate Internet child pornography.
Just having the picture alone is not enough. We need to know where it came from, or who, if they were sending it, who are they sending it to, because that may lead us to another subject down the line.
So this one chip in here, it can be the essential basis for a whole investigation.
Absolutely.
The task force, one of 61 such teams across the country, at least one in every state, is funded through the Department of Justice. The teams work in conjunction with the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, often getting tips that guide their investigations. The ICAC teams cooperate on forensic techniques and often coordinate on investigations that go well beyond their individual jurisdiction.
They may see something on the East Coast that we aren't experiencing here in Colorado. So we just network.
Lieutenant Christine Shepard is the ICAC commander for the state of Colorado, overseeing the team. In Colorado, there are 83 agencies affiliated with the Colorado Springs Task Force. Our research shows the ICAC team has been dealing with an ever-increasing number of cyber tips for investigation, escalating from just over 400 in 2010 to more than 1,900 in 2017. And the number of forensic investigations of digital devices statewide increased from 422 in 2010 to more than 2,400 last year.
Some things are right here in the city and it doesn't go any further. Some cross state lines. Some even, go from another country.
But typically, ICAC cases are in local Colorado neighborhoods where no one would ever suspect someone to stockpile or produce child pornography. Like this Colorado Springs neighborhood where then 31-year-old Brandon Hill sent child pornography to his ex-girlfriend. Then he tried to blackmail her into producing such photos of a child she may have access to.
One of their plans was to have her post online for babysitting jobs on Craigslist for a means to get a hold of a child so that way they could have her molest the child and then produce child pornography on that child.
Detective Scott Schneider works undercover so he can't show his face. He says the former girlfriend came to police telling them that one of those threatening her claimed to be an ICAC officer.
You never want to think it would be a cop, but you have to keep an open mind. We were very relieved when we found out that was not the case.
What investigators did find is that Hill was using multiple online personas, complete with these photos, including this one of a random person dressed as a police officer. As these police photos show, he had a house full of computer equipment and screens where Hill could peruse his collection and try to get others online to join him.
Did you lead her to believe that that was a police officer? I did not say it, but I did lead her to believe that, yeah.
In his initial interview with detectives, Hill admitted that while he wasn't successful in persuading his ex-girlfriend to produce child porn, he succeeded with another woman.
Was there a certain age range that you had an interest in? Yeah. Under 10? Under 6? About that. About 6? Okay. Boy, girl? Girl. She liked boys.
She was 30-year-old Rhiannon Carnahan.
You are under arrest this time. You have the right to remain silent.
Carnahan had access to a 3-year-old girl and was systematically sexually abusing her, photographing the acts, and sending them to Brandon Hill. In return, she was getting images from Hill's collection of abuse of little boys. For the ICAC team, it was a worst-case scenario.
So we knew we had a live victim. These weren't old images being circulated around for 20 years. It was a young victim who they had access to and they could have continued to produce on had we not intervened.
So you rescued that person?
Yes.
When you run into a case like this, you get angry?
You get angry that they're a victim, but you also get relief that they're no longer going to be victimized, being molested, being raped.
It is something no police officer, no FBI agent, no prosecutor really wants to talk about. The mental and emotional toll it takes on investigators who day after day must see the images of twisted human behavior and investigate the most heinous sexual crimes imaginable against children.
Most people don't want to think about this. Maybe they don't want to believe it's happening, or maybe they're just blocking it out, which is probably safer for them.
You're running a unit trying to stop this. What does it do to you? What is it doing to you?
It's horrible. I might even get emotional. It's horrible.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
It's how they do it.
Yeah. As she points out, she doesn't even have to see the images. She only has to read about them in reports, affidavits, and search warrants. It is her team that sees the horror. The drawers full of now digitally wiped hard drives and the storage of scores of phones that have been part of their investigations of child pornography speak to the increasing proliferation. But Christine Shepard and her team are driven to protect defenseless kids and hold offenders accountable.
There's probably nothing better than getting the bad guys. They do this, it's a noble reason why they do this. This is noble work.
If you don't do it, there may be no one else that steps up to help that child that's in that picture. It may suck for me to look at this for a few seconds, but if I do that and I can identify that kid and remove him from that situation, then it's worth it.
Is that what drives you?
Yes.
Do you have kids?
I do.
How many?
3.
That's why it's hard?
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate to work with, from the top down, to all my coworkers, people who are always there to lend an ear if you need to talk. We're always watching out for each other, and you always just try and make sure you either give them the space or you're there if they need you.
Like thousands of children and families, Beth and her son are dealing with the trauma of abuse and the lasting images online. But unlike so many others, she will not be silent.
There's thousands of children out there, thousands that this is happening to. Right. And some people may know about it, some may not, and they're not speaking up for these children and they're not fighting for these children. And, you know, just hoping that stories like this and more people talking about it brings awareness, and it will help, I think, victims and families be able to move on, because they shouldn't have to walk around with this dark cloud and dark shadow.
How does your son see his future?
Oh, just very positive. I mean, he's going to be doing things that some people could only dream of. He's also going to have this story to go with it, that, you know, I dealt with this as a child, and look, here I am, and you can get through it too.
While the challenge of child pornography on the web is daunting and growing, it is clear that those who are involved in this cyber warfare are eroding offender anonymity that is central to this crime. Those who deal with this daily, including investigators, prosecutors, and victim advocates, say it's public awareness and a willingness to report that is crucial in both prevention and in rescuing these most vulnerable children. That's our insight for tonight. I'm John Ferrugia. Thanks for joining us. Good night.